All right, thank you for staying with Decision 2017. This is Standing on Guard. My guests are still with me, Professor Peter Kagwanja, Chief Executive Officer, Africa Policy Institute, Major Retired Peter Mwinyi, ex-serviceman and security expert. He served the country for 3 decades. And we also have Professor Noah Midamba, Defense and Foreign Policy expert, and also VCKCA, Dr. Mustafa Ali, Conflict Resolution and Security expert. We also have Dr. Hassan Khannenje, Director, Horn Institute International Institute for Strategic Studies. We're talking about the violence that's been going on in the country and how it can be remedied, so to speak. And I want to turn your attention to page 6 of the Daily Nation, and I want to show that to my people there. Ethnic intolerance and bad politics blamed for post-poll attacks. And the second paragraph, the writer says there were heartbreaking photos of school children cowering behind police officers and journalists as they tried to escape tear gas and flying stones made the headlines. But the violence following Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i's visit to Gatina Primary School only tells part of the story. Professor Midamba, I'll start with you because you've been quiet for a while now. We've seen the police responding in almost brute force. We've seen students here being tear gassed. Is that just collateral damage? Is it lack of training? What happens here? Or is it just people being nonchalant about the effects of what they do?
Let me first of all not debate.
It's all right. It's
I'm
okay.
used to debate
Yes.
all the time. It takes years and toil to create a nation state. And it only takes one ugly act of rawness to destroy it all. And therefore, in the state of lawlessness, the disciplined folks like this major, who stated very well the experience he went to in Kismayu. He has seen what most people have not seen. And he says, stop, let's not get there. Because Rwanda to Somalia, to Sierra Leone, to Liberia, to DRG Congo, how far can we go? And it only takes great men and women of courage to stop this downslide and for us as a Kenyan people to get down to our sense. And I begin by saying the President Uhuru Kenyatta, Honorable Raila Odinga, setting the right tone to the people of Kenya, and then getting groups like the best example we have seen between the two governors to engage each other, the church people, the diplomatic communities, little kids are reading their Bibles and calling for peace. That's the only thing they want. Kenya is being damaged at its very fabric. The airport is empty if you go there right now. Shops are closing. People are turned away at employment site. Universities are closed. How far can we go before we come down to our knee? And the only thing and the only answer is the most common and the cheapest thing is communication between antagonizing group and come back to centrality of what this country is all about. Okay. That is the answer.
All right, Dr. Mustafa.
Let me take you back to answer your question back in the context of resistance. And in the earlier round, we defined what resistance is. Now, when you had a movement there, then it becomes something else. Then it becomes a movement that is opposed to fighting, often secretly and illegally, an invader or a government. Now, I'm just back from Canaan, for real, eh?
No, the real Canaan.
Yes, I'm back from Canaan. There's a serious resistance movement there because part of Canaan is occupied. Now, in the case of Kenya, when we look at the not resistance, but now the resistance movement, what is there to fight? What is illegal that is there that we need to fight or illegitimate? Now, My colleagues have spoken about Kismayu, you know, other countries that have undergone serious difficulties. Let's take an example of South Africa here. Now, South Africa was basically occupied by Afrikaans. The ANC resisted. It was illegal to resist because legally you could not resist the apartheid, but it was legitimate to resist. Now, Kenya is a different place. There's nothing here to resist. There is nothing here that is illegitimate, unless people now start considering the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta as illegitimate, which it's not. It is legitimate. Uhuru Kenyatta is legitimately elected and declared winner. Okay. And so if we are going to start saying that we are resisting the government, then that becomes something else that is illegal and should not be done. They are the Mau Mau. I think when we had a break, Professor Midamba asked Professor Kagwanja about the Mau Mau. Mau Mau was a resistance movement. Now, based on the laws that were there then in this country, we were under the colonial rule, it was illegal to resist, and that's why the Mau Mau were clamped down. But it was legitimate to resist. And we have to look at legitimacy versus legality here. Now, in the case of Kenya today, and in the case of the national resistance movement that has been launched by NASA, it is both illegal and illegitimate. Okay.
And Dr. Hassan, I want you to talk about this because we are veering off it again. When page 6 of the Daily Nation, we have pictures of students being tear gassed, but there is also the flip side that the police were being pelted with stones from within that same region. Is it a lack of proper command structure, or is it just collateral damage, or is it just an I don't care sort of attitude?
I think, Trevor, for a number of decades, now, I want to believe our men in uniform have good intentions. And I want to believe they love this country too. And more often than not, they find themselves in the line of danger and risk. However, increasingly, there's been a perception, if you were to take a poll on every Kenyan, about the level of trust, for instance, in our men in uniform, and especially our police. Yeah. And as much as they work so hard to protect us every day so we can go to bed safe, there is a good majority of Kenyans who feel that a lot of times they don't serve them. They don't do to Mishipawati, for instance. And this feeling is real. Yeah. Now, my colleague here, our retired major, and thank you for service again. You served this country valiantly. One thing that he did mention was it is important also to talk about solutions. Yeah. And that forces us to look at, first of all, what got us here. Yeah. The issues in this country are real. The sense of relative deprivation or exclusion in the country is real. Now, we cannot solve a conflict or a problem by bedeviling somebody else or by castigating them or calling them names. As a peacemaker and as someone with a PhD in conflict and resolution, I know that to make peace, you need to be able to see the humanity in the other person. Okay. We can't caricature them. So, and this holds true whether you are in government or in the position of the civil society. Okay. We need to find a middle path. Okay. But this apparent lack of professionalism is something that has actually been around and has been increasing. Now, there could be a few rotten apples. However, if nothing is done every time a few rotten apples go out of the way, then it creates a feeling that there's a systematic abuse of power by police forces, which I don't think is something planned. Okay. But I think that's the general feeling around the country. Okay. We'll
have an entire session on solutions, and I will give you about 30 minutes to talk about just the solutions for this country. But retired Major, is there something we don't understand as laymen? What happens in this situation where policemen tear gas a school where students are inside, even though there was people pelting them with stones there? Is there something we are not understanding?
Trevor, I don't know why you don't understand. I just don't understand, too. Okay. But I'll explain something. Yeah. This policeman, or policemen who threw the tear gas scientifically, iko kwa hewa. It can go anywhere. There were students there as soon as our CS left the school. There were rowdy mob youth outside there who were throwing stones. And you saw some of the vehicles, windscreens were damaged there. Yes. If you throw whatever you throw, it goes with the wind. Which direction do you think it will go? Which direction do you think it will go? I have been in town here several times when we have these problems. I've also been tear gassed. Recently, I was in the parliament where we have our forces there guarding the parliament. I took the civilians down there. I ordered them to be given water, including myself. Yeah. So as much as we blame the policemen, of course, he has said, we have some who don't adhere to the norms and ethics of their professionalism as security agents, but they are very few. Okay. But we should not also try to blame our security agents. They are trying a lot. Okay. If you look at all the scenarios that we have had during the elections, they were very patient. They were very patient. Unless some few instances where they were really provoked. And I'm not supporting the police officers, but I don't think there is any commander within the ranks of the police who would give directions to the same police officer to go and kill the civilians. Their role is specified here in this constitution, to defend the civilians and our property. But sometimes they are provoked. It goes again to the politicians, what we utter. What we utter. I think our democracy is maturing. But as long as it's also maturing, let us see what is happening. When I was doing my master's in governance and ethics at Mount Kenya University, my professor told me, peace, we are trying to analyze the word peace. Yeah. We cannot have peace when we are angry. We cannot have peace when some of our community perceives that they are left behind. I'm telling you, the whole chaos that we have is the national cake, how it is divided. Some people perceive it differently. You understand? But because we are in this situation, that is not important as at now. What is important, let us secure our what? And Professor Midamba here said something very important. Dialogue. Let us sit down and talk before we land into problems. Let us sit down and talk. And I'm very happy our Excellency, the President, said after all these things, these legal things that are pointing to him towards his election, re-election, after they finish, he is going now to sit down and talk. And we can even start now. We can start now engaging. The only solution here is not the bullet, it's not the policeman, it's not that youth is throwing the stone, it is dialogue.
Major, there's
even
something...
now, if we go to Kagwanja and talk to those youth, we dialogue with them. They tell us their inner feelings while they are doing that to the policemen. I'm telling you, we shall come to an answer.
Major, you stated something earlier on.
Let me finish my line of thought. Finish my line of thought. I think the best choice, the best avenue here, it is dialogue, to accommodate each other through dialogue and follow the rule of law to the letter. That is the one which we should start doing. Other things, who is not, it will never take us anywhere. It will land this country to a problem. And as he said, it is easy, within 1 second, to land this country into problem. But coming out of it, it is going to take ages, and we are going to have a big problem in this country. Trevor, in 1982, sorry to mention this, I was a senior sergeant. I was in charge of this street from university up to here. I saw what happened within 2 weeks during 1982 coup. I saw what happened, and I don't want to imagine our country going to that path. The path that the NASA is taking on the resistance movement, please, that is not the right, to me, it is not the right way. It is not the right way completely. But maybe they have a right towards that. But before they go to that path, let us engage in dialogue. And that path, we shall avoid it, and we shall be very peaceful in this country.
Professor Kagwanja, and the retired major is bringing up a very interesting aspect, saying in some instances the police were very measured. But in some instances, many would disagree. Baby Pendo, for example, Mora, for example, we've seen several instances where there's been brute force. How do we then restore trust in the police force?
Trevor, let me be a little bit philosophical. Police are victims of strategies of the political class. The political class can choose to misuse the police to harass civilians. But the political class can also choose to victimize the police in order to make an emotional case of the so-called extrajudicial killing, harassment, and so on. I would want to see collectively the police as, and if you study the French Revolution and all the revolutions in the world, you are going to see that the police are caught, I mean, the law enforcement authorities are caught in between. So that is the way I would deal with it. And therefore, head to where Major Peter, my namesake, is talking about peace. And again, in your Mount Kenya University studies, you must have interrogated the concept of peace. Peace is an end product. Peace can come as a result of fear, of intimidation, right? Peace can result, there is something called the victor's peace, because you accept the peace order because you have been beaten to submission. The best demonstration of peace is the contact between the chopper, the helicopter, and the air. You know, the chopper beats the air into submission, and therefore it is allowed to go and fly at its own will because it has beaten the air to submission. The best solution to problems, Trevor, is to understand what we call the root cause approach. Understand the underlying long-term causes of conflict or lack of peace. Understand the immediate, but it is always the triggers, the immediate causes that you need to look at, because that is where the strategies of politicians come in. I want to say this and stop. Two scholars, one called Dennis Tull, or Tull, and Adlea Mela wrote something in 2005, and they were commenting on a trend they were beginning to identify in Africa, which they thought was not good. They titled their piece published in the Journal of African Affairs, the hidden costs of power sharing. They went on to argue that power sharing models in Africa are reproducing insurgent violence as the political class adopt the strategy of arming themselves to the teeth, beating the society to allow them a comfortable place in the table where peace is discussed. This is a situation where peace, or the quest for peace, reproduces the dictator, reproduces the bully, reproduces. Now, Kenya is paying the cost of the 2007-2008 solution that we took. Raila Odinga is not a fool. He knows that he'll threaten until he's allowed into the table. And NCCK has already started saying it. Give him the prime minister, give the prime minister, then we go on with our business. The business community has not even come out. It's going to come out. And simply saying, we have lost 700 billion in 2 months. How more can we lose in a year? Sit down and talk peace. Okay. I think we need to say, enough is enough. You cannot use violence or intimidation to get what you want. You have to follow the path that my son, my great-grandson, and other sons will follow. Okay. And that's what he talked about, the rule of law. Okay. What we chose in 2010 was the rule of law. We all agree that after Uhuru Kenyatta is sworn in and we reach a certain level of stability, we need to talk. And we need to talk about one thing. We need to talk about inclusivity. Inclusivity is an agenda this constitution did not address in full. It addressed partially by creating counties where we share resources and share power locally. Okay. But it did not talk about how we are going to be inclusive at top. But that is not an agenda you coerce people to getting to by basically forcing dialogue. We have an instrument, which is the referendum. And this constitution is airtight. Through a referendum, or if somebody doesn't want the referendum, the assemblies, county assemblies, can put that motion and we get there. So this constitution is a solution to the problem. It is not resistant movements forcing us to accept certain models which will get some people to power. Okay.
Professor Midamba, how do we restore trust in the police force? And did we learn anything in 2007? Because it seems to come up a lot in our conversation.
Trevor, I respectively disagree with my colleague, Peter, in the line of thinking that he's taking. And I think Peter has, with all due respect for it, has a fairly simple solution to a highly, very complex African, not only Kenya, African issue. From a practical standpoint, Major here is talking about his own experience, okay? And Kenyan people watching this need to listen to that because he's been there. We can talk. Peter and I are professors. I'm well trained in areas of security and diplomacy, and also I teach law enforcement. So I know about law enforcement. The issue here, what Major is talking about is the national cake. Okay? This is not only Kenya, it's in Uganda, Rwanda, everywhere. National cake. Now, what is a national cake? President Kibaki recently described leadership as a privilege to better the life of others. And it is not an opportunity to certify personal gains. Okay? It's a very powerful statement that he made. The issue is for Mama Mboga to feel that this system is fair for me. I have opportunity to take care of my children, take care of myself. When one is in America with all its woes and problems, you work hard, you are a law-abiding citizen of the United States, you can be anything that you want to. We are all educated in that system, and we all work in that system, we know. When President Obama faced a very similar situation, an eruption between white people and black people over comments made by Harvard professor, what Obama did symbolically, he invited both sides to the White House for what we call today beer diplomacy. Okay? Two people communicating, connecting with each other, and after that he diffused the whole thing. Now, the current president will take a different rule, which we have stick, we don't have carrot. We're powerful, we're big, we can smash you down. How many people can you continue killing in order to arrive at this, what Peter, at the end, peace? You cannot arrive at peace when it is enforced against the other. Because those people, as we know the history, they will take a time and they will rise up in order to deal with the original person that enforced them. Okay, so that's not lasting peace. We have opportunity in this country to create a lasting peace for us, to be fair, to be credible, whether we are doing election or whether we are acting against each other. Police have a UN convention, under the rule of UN convention. Police have Commonwealth convention that describe very clearly, okay, the response to the mob. Okay, and what they need to do. We have seen major demonstration in South Korea. Okay, we did not see anyone killed. We have seen demonstration in Germany. No one is killed. There is demonstration going on right now in Spain. No one is killed. So the point is, yes, most police are disciplined. They're good people, good intention, but they're rogue policemen. They're rogue people who have no business being in the thing. So we need to pinpoint who these people are and separate them from our disciplined force. But that can only happen when there is a mindset of law and order in the country.
All right. Dr. Mustafa and Professor Midamba is bringing up very interesting aspects, people to taking up responsibility, pinpointing the rogues, and also the statement of leadership is to better the lives of others and not opportunity to certify personal gains.
Absolutely, Trevor. What Professor Midamba is talking about responsibility.
Yeah.
A lot of time we forget about responsibility when we're just talking about rights. A lot of time we are talking about the national cake. Well, I'll need to personally, somebody needs to explain to me what a national cake is. I don't think there's anything like national cake. People have to bake this cake in order to eat it, isn't it? So every Kenyan is going out there to, oh, my cake, we have to bake this cake. We have to work extremely hard. Ask the Japanese and the Asian tigers, they work very hard to bake that cake, and now they are eating that cake. The issue of inclusivity here that Professor Kagwanja talked about is so critical and important. And this is where, and by the way, watch this debate, even from the churches that are saying now the post of the Prime Minister and all that, watch this debate. This debate will end up, in fact, at the Kadhi's courts. Remember, it's some of those faces that I saw from the churches are the ones who said, no, we cannot have Kadhi's court in the Constitution. And let me tell you, I was at Bomas in 2002 as one of the delegates to the Bomas National Constitutional Conference. That's a debate for another day. I was the one who actually moved the motion to say that let's retain the Kadhi's court at where it is, as it has been. And it's worked very well. In fact, there's been no noise about it. But down the line, as we think about reviewing this Constitution, you will hear about those noises. Professor went philosophical, talked about the issue of peace, and Professor Midamba talked about responsibilities. Now let's on that level, in philosophy and practically, police cannot enforce peace. Now, peace is not merely the absence of war or violence. The absence of violence and war is something else. It's just stability. When we are talking about the kind of peace that we have now in Kenya, with all these keleles and noises that we are seeing, national resistance, that this political warlord, that ethnic entrepreneur, political entrepreneur, we are in a negative peace. And when a professor talked about this very well, we have to look at Kenya and build peace that is positive. Your vulnerability is a source of my insecurity, and my insecurity will be a source of vulnerability to you. Now, my well-being has got to be your well-being, and yours has got to be mine. If we are not going to look at the issues that is going to contribute to the well-being of this country, and I'm not talking about political elites here, it's that man and woman in the village, then we will continue in this state of negative peace and is going to implode at some point. The issue here, the crux of the matter, Trevor, here is, and this is very unfortunate, we cannot be talking today about creating another political position of a prime minister, deputy prime minister. This, in fact, we should review this constitution, but in its review, we have too many commissions. We should cut the commissions to half.
Wouldn't that be perceived as inclusivity?
There are too many political positions. We should reduce those political positions even further. If this country belongs to the elites, only elites, then let them create the position of the prime minister, deputy prime minister. Let them have 100 cabinet secretaries if this country belongs to the elites. If this Kenya belongs to Kenyans, the Wanjiku, the Fatuma, you and I, we need to cut those commissions. We need to reduce the amount of resources we put in politics. And by the way, a lot of times, juvenile, useless politics is a lot. We have to think harder. We have to work harder. Let us focus on development. The other noises that we are seeing around, this is not time now to start politicking. Let us build this country. Those who want political posts and positions should now wait for 2022.
Dr. Hassan, do you agree? Because there's the issue of inclusivity, and then there's the perceived inclusivity. Now, Dr. Mustafa is saying we shouldn't have any of these positions, but the political scenario makes it seem like if we have those positions, then people will feel that they're included. Even though sometimes it doesn't trickle down to the final mwananchi, it's just a perception, but that's what would create peace. Do you agree that we shouldn't even have any of these positions?
You know, in a time of crisis, Trevor, a time of crisis like now, what we're going through, it's not about who is right, but it's about doing what is right. Now, when I started talking this morning, I say that none of us elected to be born in Kenya. but by accident of history, we were born in this country. The truth is, we are about 45 nations trying to form a nation state. That is a reality of the African situation. Now, some countries have even fewer, but the increasing feeling that sometimes this, this election is just an approximate factor to what is happening. There are underlying factors, and the feelings of exclusion are real. The truth is, in some countries such as Spain, the reason why Catalonia wants to secede from Spain is because of a long-term feeling of exclusion and not being represented properly. Now, sometimes it's read, sometimes it's perceived. Now, toward the end of apartheid South Africa, a kind of a peace had to be negotiated. It was not exactly a positive peace, but it was a peace nonetheless. Now, I prefer a positive peace where we put structures in place that can ensure a long-lasting peace. Nelson Mandela didn't have to forgive all the people who did harm to him. They didn't have to set up the Tribunal Conciliation Commission and prosecute anybody. But the circumstances of the country demanded that. 366 years of oppression, still no one was prosecuted for the crimes that were committed. Why? Because the reality of the moment required and demanded leadership. And the ANC leadership had to show that, how to demonstrate that it takes sacrifice, it takes humility. To be a leader, you have sometimes to be willing to sacrifice. And what I'm just urging the leadership in this country is we have to be willing to look beyond what is right, or rather, our rights and what is legal, but actually what's going to be right for the country. Because if we don't, this is a project, this is an experiment called Kenya that we're trying to build. And my hope and prayer is we actually stay on that course, because if we don't, we're going to lose it. All right.
Major, you are the one who brought up this issue of dialogue, but we've seen the leaders chest thumping, one saying that finish all your shenanigans, then we will talk. Others saying the only thing I want to talk about is holding an elections in 90 days. Where does this dialogue begin? Is it with the leadership or the people on the ground?
Trevor, let me give this narrative to support what I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
In Kiswahili, I'm a teacher by profession, and my subject is Kiswahili. Waswahili husema mzaa mzaa uzaa uzaa mzaa mzaa uzaa. Dr. Mustafa, you come from that area?
No, I don't. I come from Baringo, as a matter of fact.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then mzaa
with no tribe.
No, mzaa mzaa uzaa.
Yes.
The kind of a game we are playing here.
Yes.
The kind of a game we are playing here can ignite big problems, and I don't wish that. Can ignite big problems here.
Okay.
I said about dialogue because I know all problems in the world that we encounter, billions of them, touching humanity, can be solved through the power of tongue. When people respect each other, we can solve these problems. Honorable Raila started this. He has done so much in this country. Fight for the repeal of Section 2A, which allowed for many parties, although parties now have changed to be tribal. I'm sorry, Mustafa, I'm not tribal. I come from a tribe that if I tell you, you will not know. From Daraka.
Yes.
From Daraka. The big problem we have in this country, and let us not close our eyes as we don't see, it is sharing of the national cake that Mustafa doesn't want to touch. That a certain ethnic group feels, I don't know whether it's perception, that they are not included there. Thanks to our devolution. That now our governors can have funds from the central government, which is my tax and his tax, to go and rectify where they thought the national government, through tribal issues and other things, they were not inclusive. You understand? But our governors, Trevor, disappointed us. Again, it brings an issue for another day discussion. Corruption. Corruption. Why have we allowed it? It is not Uhuru. We have institutions which I think, Mustafa, they are dead. Because if I see a policeman, I'm sorry, not all policemen, stop my car and ask me something kidogo, I tell them the tea is served in the house when you come, or in the hotel. And we have people who are seeing these policemen. What is happening? What is happening? Raila should be given a chance to be heard. Raila is not a person who can be washed away just like that. As much as maybe his followers or he is not following the rule of law, he is not a person to be wished away. You understand?
Yeah.
Uhuru, likewise, he has his followers also, who voted him, who we followed the rule. You understand?
Yeah.
These other political inclinations of people is not going to help Kenya.
Okay.
Let these people, because they have rallies, they have people behind them, talk. We have almost 14 days if anybody is not going to the Supreme Court to claim ABCD. We still can talk, yeah, so that we don't ban our country, Trevor. Dialogue and follow the rule of law. And I'm sure these two gentlemen, if they are willing to put their interests aside and think about the nation called Kenya with 44 tribes, yeah, I think we shall make it.
Okay.
And I always pray that our politicians also will shut their big mouths in trying to, you know, tribes, the 44 tribes, Mustafa, in this country, they don't have a problem. Yeah. We don't have a problem. It is our political leaders, yeah, who wanatugonganisha vichwa.
Okay.
And if we can address the problem of sharing this national cake I'm talking about equally, which I'm sure it is going to be addressed, yeah, by any government which will come in, because that is the root problem.
Okay.
Like, let me finish this very briefly. I come from Tharaka. If I look from colonial times, what we have in Tharaka County, it is only one road, which is tarmacked, and maybe some schools have been given the electricity, and that piece which we have there. Okay. But we don't go on breaking that rules that we want. Tharaka is one of the community embedded in the bigger ethnic group of Meru that we have not even been given. I'm not going to fight for Tharaka. I'm just showing you the root causes of why the NASA is going that route. We have never had an ambassador. The highest military rank we have ever had, although it's not political, it depends on your discipline and your hard work, yeah, is a lieutenant colonel.
All right.
It's a lieutenant colonel.
Okay.
It's a lieutenant colonel. We have not had a PS. It has been taken by the larger Meru. Okay. And I don't wish to say that. But with devolution, if we nurse this baby, yeah, of devolution, and the understanding of our political leaders, two of them, yes, up there, yes, Jubilee and NASA, we can save this country.
All right. Professor,
and the dialogue and the rule of law, yeah, is the one which is going to take us, okay, from this, not sharing the positions that we want to share. Okay. That cannot work.
All right. Professor Kagwanja, you brought up the issue of inclusivity. Where's the starting point? Because we seem to be jostling of how to go about the inclusivity part, and that is maybe the reason why even the government itself is struggling. From an academic point of view, where's the starting point of this inclusivity, and how do we make sure that the people down there actually feel included?
Trevor, what you are referring to, or what you want to discuss here, is what the German philosopher Immanuel Kant called perpetual peace. And in the quest for perpetual peace, you know, Kant went into the details of looking at how can we ensure that men and women in societies and states and nations have peace. And not just peace for today, but in perpetuity. That's why he talked about perpetual peace. For Immanuel Kant, it was very simple, that establish the values that governs you, establish the institutions, yeah, establish, you know, establish the morals and the norms. And within those frameworks, generations and generations are going to determine their future in perpetuity. Men don't need to talk to men because institutions will mediate their differences. The result is we need strong institutions that we believe in, the judiciary. We believe institutions that mediate in our competition, like IBC, or so-called independent electoral bodies. Yes. We need a police force that we believe in, and that we think it's going to protect us. And that is what Kant meant by perpetual peace. Mm-hmm. Human beings can never be trusted on anything. I want to say this. If you rest your hope in men talking and giving you solution to the future, it's only for now, not for tomorrow. Why? Because human beings are capable of two extremisms. One extreme is sadism. Men can kill for nothing, just to feel good about killing. Men are also capable of altruism. They can do good, not to be paid or not to get any gain, but just to just feel that they have done good. And that is enough. Between those two extremes, nobody can trust any outcome of two men talking and telling us this is the way to the future. Our future lies within our institutions. We go back to Kant. Our future lies within the norms, the laws that we set for ourselves. And that is why we labored so hard to come up with this constitution. America came without their constitution in 1700s, towards the end of 1700s. They have amended that constitution, I think by now 23 or 25 times. Because every generation would adjust the norm to their circumstances. So when people start talking about let's dialogue, let's have peace, I pity this nation. When elders in the church, elders like my colleague here, talk about dialogue, what are we dialoguing on? We need to talk about our constitution. Is it serving us or is it not? I was the director for the yes campaign that secured this constitution. And I worked with Honorable Raila Odinga, and I worked under Peter Anyang' Nyong'o and Kiraitu Murungi. And I saw a meeting of the mind in this country that our future will be embedded in the rule of law. It will be embedded in the institutions. And we worked tirelessly with the committee of experts and others who were not in the political process to secure the constitution. The question is, we have not finished implementing that constitution. Why are we talking about dialogue?
So, Professor, then how do we pass down these morals and norms if there's no dialogue at all? Because
it is not about passing the norms.
Yes.
We have had a process that is very systematic and which we are trying to subvert.
Okay.
It started with the establishment of IEBC. We quarreled about whether it is neutral or not neutral. We kicked the old Hassan team, brought in the Chebukati team to oversee the election.
Okay.
Then the election is supposed to produce an outcome of whatever quality, because that is what we agreed on. If you are not happy with that system, you go to the Supreme Court, subvert it, we go again. Now, President Kenyatta is president-elect. Our playing the game by the rules means that he waits patiently for those 14 days. If the election is overturned, he go back to campaign again. That's the order.
Okay.
Because we have no vacuum, and an incumbent will be acting. Unfortunately, now the incumbent also happened to be the competitor. I'm looking forward to 2022 when the incumbent will be different from the competitor.
Okay.
And therefore, we can talk about the incumbent. Trevor, we have no future, or our future is doomed if we don't believe in our institutions, we don't nurture our institutions, we don't believe in the rule of law, and we don't nurture the rule of law.
Okay.
We will have a dialogue. And our constitution allows for dialogue. In those things that we think need to be changed, to be adjusted to the changes in time. But it's not to make Raila Odinga happy. It is not to make Uhuru Kenyatta happy. That's not what we are about.
Okay.
It is about basing our society and our future in solid institutions and solid belief in the law. What we should be teaching our children and telling our police to do is to obey the law.
Okay. Professor Midamba, do you agree with this? Because we have, how do we strengthen our belief in the institutions when some of them have created history twice, like the Supreme Court of Kenya, the first one to annul a sitting head of state's re-election, and then also the first one to say there's a quorum hitch and on a case that is supposed to be decided, which will influence the next day's moves. But they say that there's a quorum hitch. Some of them were unable to come to work.
Trevor, in these are extraordinary time. First of all, I want to say agree with Peter's statement, last statement. This is not about making one happy. This is about the future of our country. And Trevor, we have come a long way in 50 years. We are the envy of most African countries when they look at our development trajectory, our accomplishment, the level where we are. They're looking at, say, well, we want to be like Kenya. I've been called by many of Africans' colleagues across the world who is telling us, why are you destroying our hope, our good example for the future of the continent of Africa? And so the point is, Trevor, South Korea was not any better at the time we got independent. Singapore was not better at the time we got independent. We actually borrow money to South Korea. We know where South Korea is right now. Okay. One of their pillars of development is called mindset. The leader of South Korea that we know, who has written a book From Rags to Riches, sacrificed himself and say he will not accept corruption in his government, in the country. And that South Koreans are going to sacrifice from rags. And they set up a very clear example of becoming a middle state, and now they have moved to a first state. From third world to first world in one generation, they have done it. There is no reason right now, with all kind of innovative young people that I see left and right on my campus, there is no reason we cannot be the one now making computers or making cell phone, mobile phones that we have that fit our local people, the country of Kenya. There is no reason why we should continue to be consumer buying even bicycle and leave alone buying toothpicks from China. We cannot continue this kind of thing. But if we continue blaming each other, if we continue finding fault with each other, we're losing the most vital, valuable time in order to engage in what I call productive dialogue. Okay. That is better for the country.
All right. Dr. Mustafa, your final remarks?
Trevor, dialogue here is necessary. Yeah. Now, and we should always be in dialogue. We should always be having conversations. We should always be talking to one another. But the dialogue here that we are talking about should be anchored on institutions, should be anchored on the rule of law, should be anchored on the Constitution, not a dialogue to go and create positions to appease individuals, not dialogue to go and say, okay, what's the national cake? Now, Major explained what the national cake here is. Now I understand. We actually, when we pay taxes, we actually baking that national cake. Now, the dialogue that we should be having here is how are we going to enrich this country so that our children and grandchildren are going to, we are going to bequeath our children and grandchildren a better country. This is the dialogue that we should be having. This zero-sum political game that is not taking us anywhere other than down the path of warlord democracy, so to speak, is not going to help us. And again, we call upon our political leaders. We respect them. All of them have done a lot for this country. Raila Odinga has honorably served this country, as Major said, the repeal of Section 2A and the freedoms that we are enjoying now. We urge him to work with others to build this country. The kind of path that we seems to be heading down is a dangerous path. I have served in many countries where there is open conflict, and believe me, once institutions, and I'm talking about constitutional sanctioned institutions, are weakened, forget about the politicians. They will muddle and, you know, do whatever they do best. But if we weaken the institutions, if we do not move this country along the path of the rule of law and the Constitution, which is what we have now, and we need to thank God, then we will find ourselves in a very bad place, worse than Somalia. Okay.
Dr. Hassan, final remarks?
Yeah, Trevor, the problem with politics in this country is that we focus on sensationalism instead of common sense. We're obsessed with the next election instead of the next generation. Now, if we think talking is difficult, try fighting. It's way too expensive. We owe it to our children. And we should rise above as leaders, both in government and the opposition, the civil society and the media, and protect this country so that generations from now, we should be able to look back and tell our children or grandchildren, this is the moment when we were most proud of our country because we did something special.
Okay. Major, final remarks?
Trevor, before we end, allow me, because I'm a teacher, to wish our candidates, whatever they are, the very best, in spite of the rocky mountains we are moving in. And they are assured that they are going to do it, and we hope so, under a very peaceful, conducive environment. Because these, again, are our future leaders. These are, again, our resources that we hope for in the next generation. Having said that, I think my good friend there, Peter, maybe he thought that maybe I didn't say. I'm saying dialogue anchored on the rule of law. That is the best way forward. But again, if we are in a corner there and want to see the other person and we cannot even penetrate our eyes there, what do we do? What do we do? This barrier, which is a corner, we must remove it. And the only way I believe in it is dialogue. Not dialogue to share those powers. But if the need be, then it will be talked about. And I'm very happy that our able president did say, within a very short time, after these legal issues come out of his way, he'll be able to sit down with Raila. And I'm sure that is the way forward. And I'm very sure Honorable Raila also understands what he has fought for over the years cannot go in the drain. He will sit down. But here we are, we must encourage that. For the two leaders, and I wish, Professor, I had the powers to put His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Omolo Odinga in one room without these other fellows out there. I'm telling you, they'll come with a solution to save this country. We cannot wish away Raila's what he wants. And we cannot wish away the legal chair of His Excellency, because he has been elected legally. Legally. And he has been very patient to wait. If it is a leader of West Africa, the way I've read history, they always come out with the military, with anybody. He has been very patient. We are lucky that we have leaders. We are also lucky we have our clergymen. The soup came. They'll come out and give us a solution. And let us put this nation in the hands of God through prayer. It works. I believe in prayer. Mustafa, I was in a school, in an Arab school, for 4 years, and we coexisted with the Muslims. We were about Christians. We were about 70. Khamis Arab School in Mombasa, and we were very happy. I can even repeat the Quran, some of the verses. I don't know why our politicians are taking us. I don't know why. And Trevor, before I close, let us not forget that our country is at war with Al-Shabaab. We have enemies who are looking at us like this, so that they can come in. If we are a family and we are fighting among ourselves, what do you think our enemy is going to do? Let us forge the unity through our tongues, through what we teach out there. Our politicians come here, you invite them, they come here, they talk of peace, unity, and when they go there, in action, they don't view this Mujaluo as a Kenya. They don't view Kisumu as our city. If we remove Kisumu from the map, what is going to happen? If we remove Siaya from our map, what is going to happen? If we remove Omabe from our map, do we have Kenya? If we remove the other parts, let us listen to what they are saying, but within the confines of the rule of law.
All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for making time for us. And my guest from my immediate right, Professor Peter Kagwanja, Chief Executive, Africa Policy Institute, Professor Noah Midamba, Defense and Foreign Policy Expert and VCKCA, Dr. Mustafa Ali, Conflict Resolution and Security Expert, Dr. Hassan Khannenje, Director, Horn Institute, International Institute for Strategic Studies, and Major Retired Peter Mwinyi, ex-serviceman who has served the country for more than 3 decades and now also a security expert. We've been speaking on Decision 2017 and standing on guard. The solution starts with you, and hopefully the country will withstand all the turbulence that we're facing. But we'll be here every second, every minute, every hour until the last day. My name is Trevor Ombija. Always a pleasure having you with us.